Everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Here?
Vice Chair Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton, Commissioner Nielsen,
Present.
Commissioner Price, Commissioner Ramsey.
Present.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, Jacob. I believe we have one change to the agenda.
Chair McGill, we have a request to take 2C1 prior to 2A1 and 2B1.
Okay, and so what that is that we will do the 767-773 Palermo Drive tree before the west side project. And then the rest of the agenda will stay the same. And that takes me to written public comment. I did not see anything come through. Is there anything that we missed? Okay, and that takes me to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. If you're here to speak on an agenda item, we'll call you when that item comes up. I don't have any speaker slips for general public comment. Is there anybody online?
There's no one online.
Okay, thank you very much. And then that takes me to Commissioner Committee Assignment Reports. I'm going to start over on the left with Commissioner Aldana.
Nothing to report today.
Okay, thanks. And Commissioner Nielsen.
For Youth Council, I don't have anything to report. They've been on summer break. They're going to resume here in August. We do have their annual letter to us to review if we'd like.
Yeah, thanks. And Vice Chair Clark.
I have nothing to report.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton.
Art is still working on their bylaws.
Okay, thank you. And then for me, we did have a Park Foundation meeting last week and are continuing to progress plans for the continuation of the band shell performances, and the next band shell performance is this coming Saturday. It's the Music Academy at 11 o'clock at the band shell. And that takes us to commission and staff communications. Anything there, Director Zachary?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, no additional communications.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to ceremonial items.
And similarly, no ceremonial
Okay.
items. The City Council's been on recess for a number of weeks. They return next Tuesday, so I expect your August meeting might have more information.
Okay, thanks. And that brings us to consent items and the minutes from the June meeting, which the recommendation being that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 25th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve?
It's so moved.
Commissioner Aldana and Vice Chair Clark? Okay. Aldana motion, Clark second. And if assuming no discussion, we'll go ahead and go to a vote. All right, motion passes. And that takes us to the trees. So we'll start with Palermo. Welcome, Mr. Slack.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a tree located at 767 Palermo Drive, and it's bordered by 773 Palermo Drive. It's a coast live oak located within the front setback of the property. The applicant listed multiple reasons for removal, including fire concerns, sort of ongoing struggles with insuring the property, long-term maintenance concerns, and then just sort of general safety concerns associated with the tree continuing to get larger. The committee reviewed the application. We looked at the tree on site. The committee commented the tree was in good health. It did have a pronounced lean, which you can see in the photograph. The committee concluded that the tree's stable and has shown like what we would call a phototrophic response, where you start to see things growing back up towards vertical, which indicates that the root system's pretty stable. So there were really no safety concerns expressed by the committee when they reviewed the tree on site. The tree is close to the house. I think that was the opinion of the committee that through like judicious pruning, you could probably, reasonably manage the canopy on the property side. And that overall it provided pretty significant benefit to the front yards of both properties. There was discussion about insurance. It's an ongoing conversation that we're having at the commission level as we review a lot of these applications. The property was currently insured, and then I think the last part of the conversation that was had with the committee was it's not really within a true designated high fire hazard zone. So even though you might want to have, maybe a little bit more of a buffer, there's no hard and fast requirement for one. And after review, the committee recommended denial of the request for the removal of the coast live oak at 767 Palermo Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Commissioner Aldana.
Okay, so the property owners have insurance and the tree's not an issue to the insurance company?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, as far as we understand it currently is insured. That doesn't mean that there may not be, challenges as we move forward. It's, as we've talked about and we heard from fire, it's sort of this ever-evolving, ongoing conversation about challenges with insuring properties in, Santa Barbara and all throughout California.
Commissioner Nielsen, yes, thank you.
Mr. Slack, does the Parks Department have any resources online or otherwise for applicants that are applying for, insurance and fire hazard research that redirect them, point them, give them information to go off of as they do this? Is there any resources out there that's coming from our department rather than the Defensible Space and Fire Hazard Department?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, we don't have any direct resources online, and a lot of times we did in this specific occasion, but a lot of times we'll ask favor of the wildlife fire prevention staff to have conversations with people, or can sometimes redirect them to those resources. But I think that that's a pretty good suggestion, and we'll take a look at that in terms of providing those resources on our webpage as well.
Thank you.
So I have a question about the pruning comments, because I actually went to look at this tree twice, because I was just concerned about what pruning would do, and it wasn't so much on the 767 as the 773. No, I've got these numbers wrong, don't I? Anyways, the higher number one. When I was looking at that one really is overhanging the roof. And when I looked at what it would take to prune it back to a genuine, what they're saying, the 5-foot defensible or more defensible, it seemed like that would be a really kind of a crew cut, quite honestly. And I was wondering if there was any conversation about that and what that level of pruning to make it truly defensible would do in terms of the health of the tree and the canopy.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think that the committee on site did comment that you could do some pretty aggressive pruning, in their opinion, to try to remedy some of that. I think that the reality is that almost all trees are more resilient probably than we think that they are. So you could probably do pretty aggressive pruning to maybe try to redirect and eliminate growth. And it's not going to be long-term detrimental to the tree. It may not look great, but it's probably not, pruning rarely kills a tree unless there's other complicating factors. So it's probably doable, but yeah, it would be have to be pretty aggressive, I think, to right the ship entirely so that you didn't have ongoing challenges with canopy and the structures.
Yeah, and I just, this gets more into comment than questions. It's with that kind of tree that becomes a very large tree with that proximity to a house that's, I understand the concerns, yeah. If there aren't any other questions, all right, I have one speaker slip, and it is Lori Rafferty, who must be you. I don't know if you've been here before, but basically the way this works, once the little clock starts, you will have 2 minutes.
That's all?
And I will stop you.
I represent 2 property owners.
Yeah, no, you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay. And this is new information. Who should I give this to hand out?
Yeah, but again, information, just go ahead and start it in a minute. Yeah, and it's, okay,
On your mark, get set, go.
you got the clock.
You made a really good point about the trimming. So I'm Lori Rafferty. I'm the owner of 767, and I also represent the property owner next door. And I want to point out that it's very significant. We think that 2 property owners are working together to solve a problem with defensible space, leaf litter constantly clogging up drainages, downspouts, and making a fire hazard. And the street people that I last week presented to, I think they kind of mischaracterized something that I said, and I want to clear that up. It's 2 property owners. It is on the property line. That's very unusual for 2 property owners to come together and want the same thing. And I'm not the only owner. So the owner that you just spoke about next door could trim the heck out of that tree, and I can trim it, but things can get unweighted. It's a practical nuisance. It is a liability for 2 property owners. We have a landscape plan now. I forgot to include that last week. We are going to plant another tree. There's the Palermo open space down several blocks. It's a great place where the city is going to do habitat restoration of Arroyo Burro Creek. We would contribute some size oak there. That, when you go to your municipal codes and that they determine that there's no findings pursuant to this, and now I had to teach myself how to look these up and learn. I actually disagree. The bottom line is, let me find it. I had to print it out. Okay. So number A of 1524.09, findings for removal. Principles for good forest management. That by removing this volunteer problematic oak on a shared property line, now the city tree will actually flourish. It is interfering with a city tree. This is going to be a constant battle between both houses and the city tree, the city street light, everything. So,
I'm sorry, your time is up.
That is not enough time.
It goes fast, yes. I've been on that side of it many times.
Especially when there's 2 property owners.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to open it up for discussion. And/or a motion. Vice Chair Clark.
I have a question for Mr. Slack. Could you address the speaker's comments regarding urban forest management and the health of the street tree being affected by this oak?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, I think that they're pretty close together, and as Chair McGill pointed out, the long-term mature potential of the coast live oak, it can get pretty large, and they're already sort of competing, so it would, they're going to suppress each other's canopy growth on that side. So, if that tree wasn't there, would the canopy of the pear tree get bigger? Likely. If that answers your question.
Was there any discussion in the committee about the possibility of putting an oak elsewhere on city property in the neighborhood? Palermo's got plenty of oaks, but elsewhere.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, Ms. Rafferty kind of mentioned that during the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting as well. There wasn't really any discussion at the committee level. I think from their perspective, there was just, they really didn't see any rationale to support the removal of the trees, so they didn't really talk about mitigation trees and where those could potentially be planted.
And was there any conversation about the competition with the street tree?
No, there was not.
Okay. I have to admit, I'm struggling with this one, which is why I'm being quiet, because I don't often go and take two looks at a tree. And I did have a good stomp around there yesterday and look at, I saw the competition with the street tree, but really looked at thinking about what it would look like to take the side towards, closer to the Palermo open area, that's a higher number, to something that kind of made sense from a defensible point of view. And it's pretty aggressive. And I'm trying to imagine what that would look like as it grew out. And that's what I'm struggling with. I mean, that is really what I'm struggling with. So okay, Commissioner Aldana.
I've been quiet also. I'm struggling myself. So with that said, I would make a motion to disagree with the street tree committee and to allow for this tree to be cut. On the findings, yeah, I need the list of findings, but it'd be like a health and safety issue.
Okay, we can do it on health and safety. I would do it on forest management.
Yeah, forest management
either
and
way.
health and safety.
So I'm going to go ahead and second that, and I'm going to do that so that we can actually talk about it and get into a vote and see where we are, rather than just kind of stare at each other. So is there any further discussion? I think we know where a couple of us are struggling. Vice Chair Clark.
I'm just addressing Sebastian's using the finding that the safety of persons or property dictates removal. With regards to trees in general, is the oak any more flammable than any other tree on that street? I mean, I know you've talked before that, trees tend to flame up and they don't normally spread to the houses. Can you just speak to that?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, I think when you talk about flammability, Coast Live Oak's pretty low on that scale. It's highly adapted to native areas that burn. Hydrated trees in general don't really ignite that much. It's more like debris in the gutters and things like that that start to be an issue. Where canopy overhang of structure definitely plays a role in that. So I don't think the tree itself has any real flammability, but the sort of long-term management challenges that Chair McGill's talked about, I think, does contribute to that on some level. And I think, just a little commentary from myself, what we used to look at in a lot of ways in terms of how front yard trees functioned in properties and contributed to streets and neighborhoods is really starting to change. And I think that this does highlight some of the challenges that didn't used to be the case. I think 5 years ago, everybody wanted a tree to grow over their house, and now nobody wants a tree to grow over their house, and it's very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, just so it just kind of be out there what I'm thinking, I am definitely not of the view that anybody who's got a tree in their front yard and freaks out over insurance, myself included, should have carte blanche on removing their trees, because it could really cascade out of control very quickly. And that's why I did go to look at this one a couple of times, because I was thinking there is something. Yeah, and there is no cookie cutter answer to any of these. As we know, every case is different and every tree is different. And it was really looking at the canopy on that one side in particular that has given me pause. Commissioner Ramsey, then Vice Chair Clark, I accidentally cleared you.
Yeah, in previous meetings, we've set the precedent that, just being a fire risk or insurance isn't, reason enough to cut down a tree. So I'd like to remain consistent, and on that front, I'd like to have a motion to agree with the.
We've
you
already
can-
got, we have a motion
You can
and a
do
second.
multiple motions. According to Rosenberg's Rules of Orders, you're allowed to have 3.
Jill?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, there's a motion and second and discussion, and until there's action on that motion, we won't substitute a motion.
Yeah,
If it
that's what I-
fails, you can introduce your new motion.
New motion, right, that's what I thought. Okay. And then Vice Chair Clark.
I guess what I wanted to say was in response to your statement, Chair McGill, that there's no cookie cutter situation when it comes to looking at trees and insurance and hazards. And yes, we have set precedent for not removing trees based on insurance reasons, but that precedent was for those individual trees, not all trees.
Yeah.
If that is, I think that's where you're going, and that's, because I struggle with the precedent thing too. I don't want our city to be denuded, but we have to look at each tree
Yeah.
individually.
And that's absolutely where I am. And Commissioner Nielsen.
I guess I want to ask Commissioner Aldana, in the context of similar inquiries in the past, why might this one feel different to you than other ones that have come forth for proximity to houses and gutters and fire indefensible space?
Well, I did go and assess the situation. I looked. I did see where, well, maybe we could get away with some trimming, but obviously it's going to get just bigger. And it is going up against the street tree. By removing this one, it would allow the street tree to grow out, make a canopy, so to speak. On each individual tree, it's either, we have rules, but on this one, and then being a property, just trying to understand the situation also as a property owner, and then insurance is being, people are getting canceled left and right, and so putting all that together today, I felt it was a good, solid decision to cut this one down.
All right, so
you
Commissioner
for responding.
Ramsey, and then I'm going to take it to a vote.
Just to follow up, that this case, they haven't canceled insurance. They're just threatening it. So we still haven't crossed that line.
Yeah.
So just for consideration.
All right, I am going to take this to a vote. The motion on the table is to disagree with the Street Tree Committee recommendation and to approve the removal of the Coast Life Oak at 7, let me get my numbers right, 63 Palermo Drive, and 67. Okay, thank you. Okay. The motion passes. Thank you very much. I think we're ready to move on to West Side.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is, go ahead. I'll introduce while Nicole leaves. Is a request to
Yes.
remove
Sorry.
33 trees. That's
We'll-
okay.
We'll let Nicole leave.
Yeah.
We have, just for the record, we have a recusal.
So this project we're referring to is the West Side and Lower West Side Neighborhood Transportation Management Plan Implementation Project. And just to provide an overview, Public Works project, they're doing lots of bike lane and sidewalk infill, similar to the Cliff Drive project that we reviewed last month. It's a proposal to remove 33 trees. We've invited Jessica Grant, supervising transportation planner from Public Works, to do an overview presentation. And if there's technical questions, there's a couple Public Works project engineers present as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation, and then we'll jump back to the committee's review and recommendation of the tree removal application.
Okay, thank you. And just before you, just for the commissioners, just as in last month, I guess two of you weren't here when we, so our our remit, we're going to hear a presentation about the project, but in terms of discussion and questions and what our actual remit is, we're about the trees. So we're kind of not about stop signs and crosswalks, though I think all of us have a vested interest in these stop signs and crosswalks. But we're about the trees. Welcome.
All right. Good afternoon. Jessica Grant, Supervising Transportation Planner. I'm here to provide a brief overview of the project. And this project was first started as a planning effort, really to improve safety for all road users in the west side and lower west neighborhoods of the city, and to really understand what the certain stress points were for residents and families, especially in the west side. There are several elementary schools, Lacumba Junior High, and how families can get to and from school safely. So there was, with that planning effort, there was a final plan that recommended several capital infrastructure improvements. The plan was adopted by City Council back in 2020, and at that time, there was an adoption of a resolution for from City Council letting staff proceed with grant funding, because all of our safety infrastructure projects require grant funding. And we were successful in obtaining a state grant from the Active Transportation Program, funding the bulk of what I'll be covering today. So a lot of this project is really filling gaps in our system. So what you see in red is filling gaps in our bike network along on the kind of the top left area along Modoc. We're proposing a protected bike lane on both sides of the street. That does also connect with the recently constructed Las Positas Modoc multi-use path. And then it also connects with the recent bike-friendly streets that were implemented on Gillespie and San Pasqual. Not only these are strong, safe routes to school routes, but regional routes as well as residents navigate from Goleta, UCSB area into our downtown. On the lower right is some additional infrastructure, because what we have understood from the community and was to have a strong route from the west side to the lower west neighborhood as well. And then with those improvements, will connect into the Cliff Drive project that you saw last month as well. So very exciting. Next slide. From sidewalk, there's just a lot of bits and pieces of sidewalk missing in the west side neighborhood. And so the biggest ones that I'll call out is on Valerio Street. There isn't contiguous sidewalk connecting within the west side to Ealing's Park. So it's important to have a safe route to parks, just as it is safe routes to schools. There's lots of programming too with schools to our parks. There's one on Manitou in Pedregosa. It's a blind turn, and again, a popular route, but now we will have a sidewalk for pedestrians. We'll have a widened sidewalk in front of the junior high in Santa Barbara Community Academy. On the top left is Carial. There is some sidewalk, but it does not get you all the way up to Las Positas. So a lot of families go to Adams Elementary in the west side. And so there is not a walking route to Adams. And so with going over the existing Junipero Bridge, you can tie into future widened path to get to Adams Elementary. And then another one that I'll call out is on Euclid Avenue. That connects from the Mitchell-Torena Bridge overpass to the West Side Center. That is one for most of my career that through the Neighborhood Advisory Committee has, and from the residents, of course, has been a requested path. And then there's little bits and pieces in our higher density neighborhoods that are without sidewalks, so putting that in. Next slide. All of the icons that you see, the yellow icons, will be updating with stronger crossings. A lot of that looks like curb extensions, rapid flashing beacons, additional lighting. With that, there are some intersections with the yellow walking symbol that you see a star next to it. We were able to expedite with additional grant funding to get those in ASAP. So they are now in place. So that's really exciting. Again, not only safe routes for Harding, but also to Benet Park and the Westside Boys and Girls Club, really having strong crossings along San Andres. That is a Vision Zero priority corridor adopted by City Council. We have a high pattern of severe injuries along that network, and so we're really trying to lower the stress and improve and strengthen the crossings in that neighborhood, as well as along Modoc as well. Next slide. These I'm just going to bring you through a few renderings of what it will look like. We are on, this is, oh, I think we skipped ahead, or did we? Oh, okay. This is just an example of a widen connection from the west side to the lower west neighborhood that is sort of a bypass area to the busy San Andres Street. Next slide. This is the Las Positas and Modoc Road intersection. So if you were coming from that path, you can continue on in a protected bike lane to get to La Cumbre Junior High and Santa Barbara Community Academy. Next slide. This is just another image of what the protected path would look like. Where there's existing sidewalk now will stay as existing sidewalk. So this is just protecting cyclists. Modoc is a higher speed roadway in our city. And so what we, again, heard from community residents over and over is to have protection for, especially for the kids getting to and from junior high and the elementary school. Next slide. Just another image along Modoc and improved crossing. Next slide. This is right at the corner of Modoc and Portezuelo. We will also have a new traffic signal installed here. Next slide. Widened path in front of the junior high, kind of similar to what you see at Santa Barbara Junior High as well that we put in recently. Next slide. This is continuing on Modoc Road as we make our way towards the Mission Street. It's just another example of how it's protected. And just continuing on, just one of the intersections. It's kind of a, Modoc Road has some interesting little turns to it. Next slide. Again, this is the widened sidewalk that can get families and residents from the west side to Adams Elementary. Next slide. And then, as you can see, there's no sidewalk for this, and sort of the Wild West, and of course, anybody that drives this area, it's just not a fun area, especially if you're walking or biking. And you really just don't walk or bike because it's just a really high-stress route. So this will be a really nice change and great planting opportunities as well for trees. Next slide. This is just continuing on that Kai Rail as we get towards Oak Park. And then this is some images of a sidewalk getting, again, from the kind of grid of the west side up the hill on Valerio Street to Elings Park. This is an example of a crossing on Valerio Street. So as far as well, we're here today is to go request removal for 33 trees. Of those 33 trees, 30 are located within the city right-of-way and are considered street trees, and 3 are on private property. So with the This Street Tree Advisory Committee has recommended 66 tree replacements, so a 2-to-1 replacement ratio. We have 40 planting locations identified at this time, but we do not see an issue of getting to that 66 mark, and we'll continue to work with Mr. Slack as the city arborist to identify those remaining 26. And I probably miscounted on that, 20, whatever, 66 minus 44, 22. So now I'll go over on the pictures of what the actual tree removals that we're requesting. This first tree is on Modoc. We will come back to this particular tree. Nathan, Mr. Slack will mention that at the end of the presentation. I'll just go over the other trees. So on this is some of the addresses, they're actually on Modoc, but the adjacent property addresses might have the cross street as the address. So for trees 2 and 3, this is again continuing on Modoc. And then just in general too, for these projects, it's not one particular street that's carrying the bulk of the tree removal. It is really spread out amongst the project. This is on Euclid Street, the tree 7, 8, and 9. Again, this is the connection to the West Side Center. And then we go to, we're trying to just put 3 trees to a slide. Now we're on the tree on the right is on Valerio as you go to make your way to Ealings Park. The image on the left, trees 12 and 13 on Valerio. And now we're pivoting along Kyriel. So the Betty Drive addresses is just, again, the adjacent property address. Next slide. So all of these, again, are on Kyriel. Again, it's sort of the, not Wild West out there in vegetation, but I think it will be really a nice cleanup and really to bring back the nice aesthetics to a high-stress corridor. And then again, continued on Kyriel. And then this is where the widened path is connection from the west side to the lower west neighborhood. And that is just for the widened sidewalk for removal and removal for those trees. And then this is that sort of blind turn in the west side to get to La Cumbre Junior High and Santa Barbara Community Academy. So residents right now here are just forced to be in the street. So now we will have a nice sidewalk for residents to get to and from their destinations. That is it. So again, just general overview of the project and tree removals. If anybody's watching or curious to know more about the project, we have the project website. And then if anybody wants to contact for our team, that is the email address. With that, I'm happy to, I think I pass it to Mr. Slack now. He wanted to debrief the Street Tree Advisory Committee.
Yeah, and I think I'll hold questions until we finish with Mr. Slack's presentation.
Yeah. So Chair McGill, Commissioners, the committee reviewed the application. We received the presentation as well, and then did a site visit to look at all the trees. I think the general consensus of the review was that it was seen as a practical improvement of the property, similar to the recent projects that we've seen. When you're making these right-of-way improvements, there's not a lot of options when you have trees that are right where the new sidewalk or these other proposed improvements are going to be. So in looking at most of the trees, I think there was very little wiggle room, I think, in terms of creative strategies with where the existing trees were, and then just varied levels, as you saw in the photographs. Some of the trees were just sort of happening in the right-of-way, and then we had some other trees, like on Euclid, that were clearly planted, several decades ago as street trees, but now in conflict with the proposed improvements. The one tree that was a real sticking point for the committee was the large river red gum that's on Modoc Road, very close to the fire station. I think, again, just to kind of briefly surmise, the committee was supportive of the removals. They did ask in a very similar manner as to the Cliff Drive project where we looked at the cork oak, if we could study the retention or if there were design strategies available for to incorporate that large river red gum on Modoc without having to remove that tree. And so we asked Public Works to analyze that. I'll let them kind of explain the analysis, but in talking about replacement trees, the project team kind of did a survey of our tree inventory, and there were like 40 vacancies sort of within the project footprint. The committee was happy to see a large number of replacements, but also commented that there could be more replacements, and I think just from a consistency perspective with looking at the Milpas project and Cliff Drive, where we saw, at a minimum a 2-to-1 or potentially a little higher replacement ratio, they were pretty motivated to kind of hit that same mark. So the recommendation was actually to approve all 33 trees. I think with the good faith that staff was going to march forward and really analyze the river red gum, knowing that there were limitations potentially to it. And so, again, it was a recommendation to approve all 33 trees with a condition to replace with 66 new trees. And then if there's interest in terms of the 3 trees that they just happen to fall just outside of the public right-of-way, so they technically hit the setback, I'm kind of just going to answer it for them. They worked extensively with the city attorney's office, reached out to the property owners. The property owners have consented to those specific 3 trees, so they're in full understanding of what's been proposed, and wouldn't be allowed to move forward until they receive consent anyway. So just that additional part. And then I'll turn it over to you guys, the Public Works team. They can kind of talk about the analysis, the opportunities, and then sort of the impacts if the tree is retained.
Okay, thank you. And so are you going to, do you have a little bit more to talk about the red gum on Modoc?
Sure, and Mr.
Great.
Sakwa, while I'm going over the issues, if you wanted to go back to slide 20, just so the Parks and Recs Commission has the photo of the tree in question, which is tree number 1. So this really comes down to, again, we've had years of community engagement for this planning effort and projects. What it's kind of an issue of preserving the street tree or on-street parking issue. So how parking is on Modoc Road is there's timed bike lanes. So the parking happens where you can park on Modoc Street right now from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. And so there's approximately 72 parking spaces. And when we were looking at all of the analysis, and we did parking demand analysis as well, we then had, well, what would be the parking removal? And at the time, the community outreach for those meetings, they said that's too much on-street removal. City, go back again and analyze that. So we did, and where we landed is currently for 41 on-street parking spaces along Modoc, and that's changing again from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. overnight to 24/7 parking. Where this particular tree is in an area next to higher density apartments. A lot of them predate parking regulations, so there is either no parking on site or very limited on-site parking in this general area. And so there's also across the way in the Greenwell Acres, the way that the residential parking permit system does not allow any of those residents in the higher density to park on the other side in the Greenwell Acres. So basically, from there, the on-street parking areas is then walking a quarter mile to a half a mile near the junior high. And then there was the stories that were shared for when they start to park further out and people have spit on their vehicles. And so the on-street parking wars are real. So in that context, and what we've heard from the residents was to request for the parking removal. From an engineering perspective, can you save the tree? And the answer is yes, we can. We can have a little jog around the tree to protect it. It translates to 2 lost parking spaces in an area, again, where we hear from the residents that on-street parking is critical. So that's sort of what is being weighed. So again, what we've heard, that's why we've asked for the removal. But
So it's, the tree is 2 parking spaces?
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's not that if you take down the tree, you get 2 more parking spaces, it's if you jog around the tree, you lose 2 parking
Correct.
spaces? Okay, that's what I thought, I just wanted to be absolutely clear.
Correct.
Okay,
And so just to clarify too, it's still Public Works' desire to remove the tree.
right, yes,
So
that's,
it's
I understand that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, the debate is not whether to allow for parking spaces or not, but just more the practical development of the proposed project.
Correct, and the tree, yes, yeah. Okay. With that, we at a good point for us to turn it over to questions? So thank you very much for your presentation, appreciate it, and thank you. So I'm going to start with, I believe you were first, Commissioner Ramsey.
Great, thank you so much. This is a great project. Thank you so much for putting it together. I wholeheartedly agree this will make the city a much safer place, as I biked to all these trees and was quite scared at a few different places. The only thing that's kind of being the thorn in my side wasn't this eucalyptus at 2531. It was the eucalyptus at 616 Eucalyptus Avenue. I believe this was the private area. And so my first question is, are we able to plant in that space once that's taken down? Because that is the only tree on that side of the street and really just kind of the only foliage coverage there.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. I can answer that question. Unfortunately, we're also accommodating parking there, but the space is limited because of sightlines. In addition, we're trying to add street lighting in that corner to really illuminate the new crosswalk. So it's a conflict with safety concerns and sightlines.
Okay, so there, from an engineering perspective, there's no saving that tree because that street was named after that tree and it's really just kind of the only greenery on that corner.
Unfortunately, yeah, there is no way to save that tree. And I will add also, we did talk to a private property owner and they are in favor of removing that tree.
Great. And then the other question I have, so we're doing a 2-to-1 ratio, super excited by that. But does that really speak to where one tree was, we're going to plant 2, or could theoretically we plant 15 palm trees in one stretch, and that's a third of the chunk?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, we definitely wouldn't be planting palm trees. I think just as general practice, I think we're trying to move away from that. And I think it's always our goal, and I think also, you know, speaking for Public Works, to try to like maximize the replanting within the project footprint. I think, you know, if you rode MODOC, it's got limitations, especially in the eucalyptus area. And I think some of these other areas have limitations, so we may have to just spread outside of that. But taking advantage of west side planting is really good because there are tree needs, you know, immediately adjacent to a lot of the project impacts.
Great, thank you so much for your work.
Yes,
Oh,
and on behalf of Public Works, it's really important that we keep our urban forest intact, and especially from a walking and biking environment. We do not want to have concrete jungles. Trees are very much part of the fabric to a comfortable walking and biking and driving environment, and helps with traffic calming as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, Commissioner Nielsen, and then Commissioner Aldana.
Director Zachary, you were kind of telling us we're not here to, design the public infrastructure, but does that mean that we have to make a motion to accept or deny all 33 at once, or is that not what you meant?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, the commission can take action to concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee and recommend approval of removal of all 33 trees, or the commission could choose not to approve all 33 trees and have an exception for 1, or 2, or 3, or 29.
Yeah, thank you for elaborating. May I ask Jessica a question then?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess it's going to be 2 questions, Jessica. Besides the eucalyptus we use as an example that equates to 2 parking spots, are there other trees that it's not a daylighting issue, a crosswalk issue, it's purely a parking that drives the removal of other of the 33 trees?
To answer that, it's not one answer. It's sometimes the removal is because of the proposed sidewalk location. Others, in the case for MODOC, would be for the protected bike lane in that section. Most are because of the sidewalk locations.
Okay, so no other trees come to mind as specifically to achieve parking goals?
No, that has the conflict between parking and preservation, no.
Okay. Okay, and then I think just to ask about this one, then eucalyptus, and maybe in the context of the full 33 trees, it feels like an okay sacrifice to accomplish a lot of community feedback about on-street parking. But can you elaborate for us how Public Works goes about making or deciding that you want to come forth with a request to remove it, as opposed to just saying, nah, you know what, we got a lot of complaints about parking, but we can forego those 2 spots? How is that judgment call made in a case-by-case, tree-by-tree, parking spot by parking spot? Is there a methodology? Is it a gut feeling?
That's a great question, and I think the short answer is it's a case-by-case basis. And in this particular situation, really the need for the on-street parking, we had a similar situation along Milpas, where we did put to the community as we were installing for the new curb extensions, provided some planting opportunities and how far to move the curb alignments for future planting. And that may impact a on-street parking space, and what we heard from the community that it was okay. So I think it really is site-specific. And I think at the end of the day, it's just, I am here to, as behalf of a Public Works member, and then also to just also communicate of what we've heard during all of the community outreach, and just want to make sure that we're providing both of those voices.
Thank you.
All right, and Commissioner Aldana.
Okay. Let me see here. On Carrillo Street, you were going to make the sidewalk wider, so from Carrillo to Chino?
Um,
It would be to Mercedes. Yes, it's
Mercedes.
in between Chino and San Andres. There's a public alley Mercedes, and right now it's to Mercedes.
Because those, let me see, crepe myrtle, those are fairly new, right? Maybe 6, 8 years?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, we're fortunate to have one of the longstanding parks managers, Santos Escobar, on the committee, and he remembered planting them, so they're actually quite a bit older than that.
Okay.
It's a relatively small tree. They're really nice examples. There was even conversations about trying to just move them over. Too difficult, but yeah, so I think they're quite a bit older than, say, 10 years.
Okay, but those are, is it the sidewalk just for pedestrians? And then the bicycles will have their own?
It's a widened path. It is envisioned for some of our younger riders on our road network that we may anticipate kids riding their bike on that short section as well, to be avoiding the San Andres Street. So it's a bypass connection.
Okay.
And we will still end up with Parkway to plant new trees.
I'm just curious, is it possible to keep those crepe myrtles and just have sidewalk on both sides of them? And was that even a consideration?
When we evaluate projects, we like to look at all scenarios. When it comes to lower stress routes, it's a preference to have the landscaping and trees as a buffer from the higher speed roadways and the sidewalk. So if you were to put sidewalk towards the street, then it's just putting pedestrians closer to the vehicular traffic. And that's Carrillo Hill is just by nature, you have higher speeds going down that hill.
Got it, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. I think we're at a point where I think we have a good feel for what this is about. and what
I wasn't done, though.
What'd you say?
I was not done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all
All
right.
right, go ahead, one more, okay?
Getting back to tree number 1, and if you were to do a jog, how much of a jog would it be? I understand there's 2 parkings that could,
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, based on like preliminary studies, we asked to try to keep this edge of sidewalk 2 feet off, so it would shift everything over 4 feet, I guess. Or maybe you answer.
Oh.
You're talking about the,
Are you wanting
like
the
if we were-
horizontal,
so as an example, if we were to save the tree,
right.
how much of a
So
jog?
the jog is
2 feet.
2 feet.
Which is not much, right?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I think like that's preliminary. You know, I keep referring to like the preservation of this tree as like, you know, I jokingly like a game time decision because when we're demoing and we're putting it in there, so it could be around there. I think when we provided that information to Public Works, it was like, how close do we think we can get without like causing detrimental damage to the tree? So the preliminary study was at 2 feet. 2 feet away from the base of the tree. And as you can see right now, it's, you know, the root flare has grown over the asphalt patch. So it would be kind of 2 feet from the base of that.
Okay,
Okay,
you good?
I'm good.
Okay. And I definitely don't think we don't want to stray into engineering the project for you. So I think now are we at a point where we have one speaker slip, so we can turn it over. I don't know if we have anybody online, but we've got one in-person speaker. And yeah, it is. So it's Daniel Fox. And you will have 2 minutes once the clock starts.
Okay, well then I will be quick. Thank you. I don't necessarily oppose this whole project. I only had an option to oppose or whatever. So our specific interest is on slide 23, and our parcel is located on the corner of West Sola and Euclid. And so I have questions about this, and again, not necessarily opposed, but this is the first time I'm seeing these photos. So I guess one of my questions is, will there be landscaping to beautify what's being built and or cut down? I think it sounds like the answer is yes to that. Are the 33 trees identified on the overview all that will be removed for this project? I don't know if anyone has an answer for that, but it sounds like that is true. And if so, then there's a couple of dilemmas related to tree number 7 and tree number 8 and 9. And why we have issues with the project is not so much the overall project specific to Euclid. Euclid is a street that's on the corner of where we live, and there are ongoing issues with Euclid that you all may be aware of, and I know Jessica's aware of. One of the personal problems that we have with it is that we built an ADU, and it took us about 6 years to get approvals and all the things. And one of the requirements was that we build a driveway, and we were required to use a certain type of paver, and that paver was very expensive, about $25,000 to put that in, as opposed to gravel or whatever. And this new sidewalk is going to go directly through that. So the last question I have is who should I talk to?
Okay, so your time is up, and I can guarantee you that we don't do sidewalks. So the people right there are probably the people, I would say contact them directly. And because basically what you're talking about and the questions are really much more public works than they are tree-related.
There are
Yeah.
trees. on
Right.
that.
But absolutely, but yeah, and all the trees are specifically identified, which you should have seen from the presentation. But in terms of pavers and things like that, those are your folks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and is there anybody online?
There is no one online.
Okay, thanks. With that, I think we've had a good discussion. We've certainly got a thorough conversation about what's happening, what the issues are, and where the issues are potentially. As someone who has certainly spent a lot of time on that Clearview corner, I'm thrilled that I might not get killed. Or on Modoc or Portsuelo. I think it's time that we can turn over if there is any other discussion or a motion.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, just one quick note. I think just procedurally,
Okay.
as you think about making a motion, if you're in support of the 3 private trees, you should identify a finding. And then I think in terms of housekeeping, I think we may have missed a finding on the last one as well. So we probably should make a finding unless there was a finding for the Palermo one as well, outside of the motion for the Modoc Road item.
The Palermo, I thought we said it was forest management.
Okay. That's fine. That's
yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
And then, so we'll need a finding, not for the street trees, but for the 3 for the setback trees. Okay. Which I would think would be reasonable and practical development. All right, so we got, I think Sebastian, it was you first. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, I was going to go ahead and make a motion for 32 trees. And the one tree, if we could come back at a later time, is tree number 1. So that's a motion. If you agree, great. If you don't, then no. So I just have a problem with cutting that tree number 1.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think probably what would be ideal would be to, for me to be better at the slide management, but also I think the Commission's decision, if they concur to retain the red gum, we'll march that forward and make that work. I think if we found that there wasn't opportunity, like if there's something prevented us from retaining it, if the commission's comfortable, like that could be at a staff decision. That would be up to me and our team to make a decision on whether it could be incorporated or not, rather than coming back. It's entirely up to you guys, but it's I think we're committed to making the commission's recommendation or the commission's decision a reality. So if you're concur to retain the tree, we're going to do everything we can to retain it, which would not require us to come back at a later date.
So what you're, so I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking or suggesting that we could do. You're saying that we could make we could approve the motion to remove 32 of the 33 requested trees with the replacement caveats. And then if down the road you just really determined that you couldn't do it, we would be okay with you giving you that discretion.
Essentially, yes, you'd be
Okay.
allowing for some administrative authority at the city arborist level to make that decision.
Yeah, I would personally be comfortable with that.
Yeah. And I am also, if all possible,
Yeah.
it'd be a little difficult to get another tree like that.
Yeah. So then we've got Commissioners Nielsen followed by Ramsey.
I guess I'll second Commissioner Aldana's motion to approve 32 of the 33 trees here now and the 33rd tree at the staff level for removal. And then while I'm making that second, to just share the opinion that I think trying to preserve that tree and forego the 2 parking spots is the right intent. And that's why I'm deciding to second.
And then, am I putting words in your mouth, Commissioner Aldana, if I say that the finding for the 3 private trees is reasonable and practical development?
That is correct.
Okay, and Commissioner Ramsey?
Nothing more to add.
Okay. I think we probably discussed this enough. I think we can go to a vote. The motion on the table is to approve everything except tree number 1 at 2531 Modoc Road with, on the caveat that we have the as recommended number of replacement trees, and it's a reasonable and practical development, and we believe you will do everything in your power to save tree number 1, but you have the administrative authority to, if it turns out you can't.
Yep.
Did I get that, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody hasn't locked?
I'm just trying to recuse Vice Chair
Oh,
Clark,
yeah,
but it's
okay.
not letting me, so I think I'm going to have to approach it a separate way. Do you
Oh,
mind if I cancel
vote.
this and then
Voice vote?
retry?
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, or we could just voice vote.
Chair McGill, and we could do a voice vote on this one if you choose.
Yeah, we'll just do a voice vote.
That also works.
Okay. Do we need to do a roll call voice vote, or can we just do all in favor of?
Chair McGill, it will be reflected in the minutes that Commissioner Clark recused herself.
Okay. So we do a voice vote?
Well,
Okay.
is it a roll call vote? or-
All right, well, let's just do a voice vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Chair McGill,
Aye.
I think actually for the voice vote roll call, each commissioner's name would be read out, and you would
Okay.
voice your vote.
Go ahead. We'll do a roll call.
Chair McGill,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldana,
Yes.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton. Commissioner Nielsen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And that takes us to the final tree. Thank you very much. That takes us to the final tree on Junipero.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a Chinese elm. This is located within the front setback of the property at 623 West Junipero Street. The applicant was requesting removal of this tree due to multiple limb failures and just maintenance concerns essentially associated with the limb failures. The committee reviewed the tree. We did an on-site inspection. Even from the photo, you can tell it's a little funky. It did have quite a bit of evidence of limb failure. Chinese elm is a pretty difficult tree to manage when they're mature. Like if you say you cut a limb back, you don't tend to get like what we would call a good growth response. So you don't get like dormant or adventitious buds popping that can give new leaves and turn into branches and that sort of thing. So it's really hard to restore a canopy. That was sort of the general opinion of the committee as well, that the tree in its current shape was really not providing much value, subject to potential continued limb failure, and not really a good candidate for like restructuring or canopy restoration. And after review, they made a recommendation to support the removal of the tree. In discussion with mitigation trees, there's a really nice young coast live oak right next to it that will fill in that space, and they were of the opinion that there was more than enough landscaping and canopy cover in the front of that property, so they didn't condition any replacement trees. So the recommendation is just to approve the Chinese elm at 623 West Junipero Street, and the principles of good forest management can support the removal.
Okey-doke. Thank you very much, Mr. Slack. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I do not. It's a stunning specimen. There are no speaker slips. Is there any online?
There is no one online.
Okay. With that, I will turn it over for discussion and/or a motion. Commissioner Ramsey?
I'll just go ahead and make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee to remove this tree on the finding of good principles forest management will be upheld.
All right, and Commissioner Nielsen?
I'm happy to second.
All right. I'm assuming since there's been no discussion so far, there will be no further discussion, and we'll just go ahead and go to a vote. All right, and we have a unanimous vote. And that takes out the trees. Thank you very much. See you next month. And that takes us to the director's report.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, there's 4 items in your report this month. You're well aware of the first 2. We mentioned the Parks Make Life Better celebration for the month of July. I want to thank Chair McGill for coming to City Council to accept the proclamation. Gives us an opportunity to toot our own horn in a City Council meeting. It's something that's done actually throughout the state of California, so all communities that sort of like to use this month. And each year, we want to look at different ways to be able to promote what we do in our city park system and for recreation services. And then, of course, we had the 4th of July, so that occurred successfully. And it's an event that involves largely the on-the-ground operations, our parks division staff and waterfront staff, but as you can imagine, our public safety personnel are also very much engaged in making sure that the 4th of July activities are safe. The Park Foundation also hosts the fundraising for the music that occurs down at the waterfront. So the Park Foundation accepts donations on behalf of the individuals that organize that, so that donors to that program get the benefit of contributing to a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And then upcoming, just around the corner for Fiesta this year, we will be hosting the 93rd Children's Fiesta Parade. It's not often realized that this is actually a City of Santa Barbara event that has been organized and implemented by Parks and Recreation since its inception. We're looking forward to having a successful parade this year. We have found, and hope the same to be true this year, that attendance is even higher when we have the parade on Cabrillo Boulevard. Chase Palm Park provides a really safe space for families to come, to play, to watch the parade, to be in the parade. There's minor changes in the direction. We're actually going to go from east to west as opposed to west to east. In part, it'll help with the organization of our parade participants, as well as the disbanding, and most importantly, the handing out of ice cream. So hopefully you'll have a chance to come down to the Children's Fiesta Parade. The other events, as you know, that are put on during Fiesta are largely organized by Old Spanish Days. And so there is still the regular horse parade on Friday. Fiesta Pequeña starts Wednesday of next week. Hard to believe. Activities, the Mercado is in De La Guerra Plaza only this year. And then also there's the Noches de Ronda at the Santa Barbara County Courthouse. So if you're a Fiesta goer, there will be things for you to do, things to eat, and hopefully wonderful dancing and music to enjoy as well. Very happily, we have officially completed the Carrillo Gym. We call it the exterior renovation project, mostly because we really needed to fix a roof that had been leaking for far too long, as well as shore up the building because it was falling down. The gym was constructed in 1926 after the earthquake. Once upon a time, there was actually a wooden gym in that location. A lot of people don't know that Julia Morgan, famous Julia Morgan for Hearst Castle, is actually the architect of the Carrillo Gym. She's also the architect of what's now called the Julia, but used to be called the Little Barrow Building, and once upon a time was called the Margaret Baylor House, which is the white building on Anacapa opposite what is now Union Bank. And that structure was actually designed and constructed concurrently at the same time the gym, and it's also designed by Julia Morgan. If you go by the building, you will see it is not the same color it was before the renovation. We actually scraped away and came up with what was the original paint color when it was constructed. So as part of our efforts to go through Historic Landmarks Commission to get the approval for the exterior improvements, which we are required to do, we proposed bringing it back as close to what we thought the original color was. The windows are no longer painted green, they're also blue. That was something that we proposed to do. Was it original or not? Uncertain. And then we have new doors on the exterior, which is, at least on the alleyway exterior, which improves safety for primarily youth that play basketball in there. And then perhaps really most importantly, depending on one's perspective, is the roof no longer leaks. We have restored a multi-sport court. It was originally designed for tennis and then turned into basketball. So in addition to sealing the roof, and that's like the short course of what happened, and actually painting, putting in a sport court surfacing on top of the roof, we replaced the fencing that goes around and also put in new lighting, and essentially has turned it back into a functional court. We are hoping to have not quite a ribbon cutting, because it's sort of weird, because when you do go into the building, you're like, there's more to be done. And yes, there is more to be done. But give people the opportunity to go visit the sport court and perhaps shoot a basketball and just sort of see what it's like to be up there. It's actually kind of a really neat space. Commission may remember in our capital proposal for fiscal year 26 and 27, we requested funds to begin the design, or at least hopefully complete the design for interior improvements for the Carrillo Gym. So that's another opportunity, hopefully, to come see it and see basically what we'd be looking at doing perhaps on the first and second floor. The third floor, which is where the roof is, doesn't have a lot more going for it, except it has one of the city's first live-work environments, because it has an old studio that was actually designed into the gym as part of Julia Morgan's architectural work. So we'll keep you posted when that happens. Chances are it'll be closer to the end of August. Everybody seems to be very busy with the summer season. It has taken, 20 or 30 years to get to where we are today, but we're really happy that we've restored the exterior, protected the building, hopefully for another 100 years. With that, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good news as always. The director's reports are always fun. Any questions? Yeah, okay, if not, thanks. That takes us to the annual advisory committee reports. And the way we normally handle these for folks that are new, is there's really not a presentation or a discussion. It's, if there's something that you read that you want to ask a question about or comment on, then this is the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, we just say, reports received, thank you very much, everyone, for a really successful year. And that's really about it. Vice Chair, and I don't even think we need a motion. I think it's just, we're good to go. Except for questions and just. Yeah, no, I know, yeah, yeah. So, do you want to?
No, I'll ask it. I can just ask it later.
And Commissioner Ramsey, I have you on my list. Is that because I forgot to clear you from last time, or is that? Okay, good, okay. Commissioner Nielsen.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to draw to everybody's attention in the Youth Council report that they had a little bit of an uphill battle filling some vacancies this year, and they're still looking to recruit. So if you have any opportunity to get the word out on the Youth Council and its existence and how to apply, it could benefit that team. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's an extraordinary group, and I would love to see it to be so much more competitive to get in it than it is, because it's a real opportunity, and the kids just do great work. Yeah. Yeah, with that, I think reports duly received. Thank you very much, everybody on the subcommittees. You, great work and great commitment. With that, it takes us to the master plan discussion.
Chair McGill, members of the commission, Bronwyn Bradbury will be doing this presentation. Commission may also remember, as part of our capital plan, we requested funds to advance a master plan. Bronwyn's come on board. She is the project manager for this project. This is our first public presentation of the work effort today, so we're here to ask for some input, but I'll turn it over to Bronwyn and have her walk you through the work effort to date. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. Chairman McGill and Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. We're here to tell you about... Is that not on? All right, I'll start over. Chairman McGill and Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. Today we'd like to go through the Parks and Recreation Master Plan with you, the work plan for it, and get your feedback on the draft goals, the stakeholder groups, and the work plan. So I'd like to start with what is a Parks and Recreation Master Plan. As the name implies, it's a long-range plan for our system of parks and recreation facilities. It also addresses the recreational and social programs that this system supports. The plan would inventory and assess the system, identify community needs, and guide and prioritize future development. Developing the plan will include significant public outreach to identify the community goals and objectives. With this plan, we aim to really address what the residents want to see in the system. The city has a dynamic network of parks, open spaces, trails, recreation facilities, and community buildings. And due to Santa Barbara's rich history, the park system includes locations, artifacts, and buildings with historic and cultural significance. As seen on the map, the city has a variety of parks, which includes various types. The city categorizes parks by type for planning purposes, with the various park categories shown in this table. The park categories are based on the quality and characteristics of each park, and they guide the type of development that's permitted by park type. So the types we have here, we have 7 different park types. We've got beach parks that provide access to our beaches. We have community parks that are intended to serve the entire community. These are parks where people may travel to go to that park because of unique amenities that are located there. They're also the parks where we host city events, like at Alameda Park when we have Solstice, things like that. Next, we have neighborhood parks. These are intended to serve the local community. So these are generally parks that people walk to from their homes, and they include infrastructure like playgrounds. They often include open fields, things like that, something that you want in your neighborhood. Next, we have passive parks. These support passive uses like walking and picnicking. They're often ornamental in nature, like Alice Keck Memorial Gardens, and they often contain cultural and historical resources. Next, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have our sports facilities. These are our parks that support a variety of outdoor active recreation. They contain athletic fields, tennis courts, and other sports infrastructure. And then we have our open spaces. These are largely undeveloped parks that are protected and managed as natural environments, and in most cases, they also support passive uses like walking, hiking, and bird watching. We also have a couple of regional parks. These are intended to serve people throughout a region, and they can have a wide variety of uses that are both active and passive. They can support things like major organized sporting events where it's not just people from the city. The two regional parks we have are the Santa Barbara Zoo and Ealings Park. So looking at this list, we have a total of 64 parks and open spaces. That's not the number you'll see if you add those up, because 3 of them actually fall into 2 categories depending on which part of the park you're looking at. The city also has 18 community buildings. Similar to our parks, they serve a variety of different uses. We have recreation facilities like the Carrillo Recreation Center and our Lawn Bowl clubhouses. We also have community buildings like the Louise Laurie Davis Center and the West Side Center. And we have a couple of community buildings that we lease to partners that provide youth services. That includes the Haley Street Youth Center and 1235 Teen Center. So all of these community buildings, along with the parks that you saw in that prior list, comprise that physical system of parks and recreation facilities that support park and recreation programming and are covered by the master plan. Our aim with the master plan is to plan on a system-wide basis. What this means is when we identify community needs, we're able to consider where in the system can we address this need. This is instead of planning for single parks one at a time and deciding what can happen there. Instead, we say, here's a community need. Where in our system does it make sense to support these sorts of uses? The city has performed system-wide planning efforts in the past, starting in 1975, with the development, kicking off the development of the first master plan. That's the one that we referred to as the initial master plan in the staff report. That plan was finalized in October of 1980 and adopted in March of 1981. At that time, the city also passed a resolution calling to update the plan every 2 years, which is a pretty ambitious goal since it's a very large effort to look at the entire system and make a large plan to move it forward. The city did manage to complete their first update 4 years later in 1985, and that was the last update to the master plan. However, the city has pursued other system-wide planning efforts, including the 1989 Parks and Facility Needs Assessment. This has a lot of similar elements to a master plan, but is not quite as comprehensive. Then in 1995, the city attempted to update the 1985 plan, but that effort was not completed. The city performed another comprehensive assessment of the system in 2005. This was a baseline analysis that was done in support of the city's general plan update at the time. This assessment did not include recommendations for improvements to the parks. It was just an assessment of where we're at now. So different from a master plan in a big way in that respect. So given the 1985 master plan update was the last one and it contained a 5-year implementation plan, it's been since about 1990 that the city has been operating without a parks master plan. Since that time, absent a master plan, the city has successfully advanced many individual parks and recreation facility improvements in response to community demand and infrastructure reinvestment needs. The city has also developed site-specific master plans for Ortega Park, Dwight Murphy Field, and East Side Neighborhood Park. However, we believe that we can more effectively address the community's future needs with a system-wide plan. With the master plan, we aim to plan for system updates and expansions to meet known and identified existing needs and accommodate increased population density and potential climate change losses in the park system. So we'd like to walk through the preliminary goals, and this is one of the elements that we'll want your feedback on. The preliminary goals fall into two categories. The first set of goals relate to the planning process, so that's as we're writing the plan, developing the recommendations and so forth. The second set of goals relate to that final document and how that plan guides our future. So the planning process goals include mobilize and engage the community to understand their needs, identify current and future park and recreation needs. Next is facilitate inter-organization cooperation. This could be things like new joint use agreements. The city used to have some joint use agreements with schools that have fallen by the wayside, so possibly bringing some of those back or even new ones. The next goal is to inspire new ideas and partnerships. The next is evaluate the feasibility of proposed ideas. And then, importantly, assess existing and potential funding sources. So that would all occur as part of the planning process as we're developing the draft master plan. Then we have the goals related to the plan itself once it's complete. Those goals include providing a roadmap of system improvements to meet the identified needs. The second goal is align resources with community values and trends. And what we mean by that is ensuring that we invest in the improvements our community wants to see in the system. The third goal is to increase access and ensure equitable distribution of resources. So this includes consideration of accessibility, transportation, and also the distribution of park resources throughout the city. Like, where are those parks, making sure that all the different neighborhoods are served. The fourth goal here is to support funding efforts for redevelopment and expansion. We'll be referencing the master plan in the future when we apply for grants because it documents our community's long-term vision and goals, and it's based on rigorous data analysis and community input. Given the importance of the public engagement process for this, we're next going to look at the key stakeholder groups that we want to engage. We identified six types of stakeholder groups. First, we have department partners. These are organizations we work with to help provide recreation and community services to the public. So this includes facility operators, event organizers, lessors of city property, and service providers. Next, we have user groups, and these are the groups that are making use of the park system. They're using the facilities. These are youth groups, summer camps, athletic leagues and classes, and recreational user groups like, say, Audubon, where you have a lot of bird watchers. This is a group of recreational users that are coordinated together. Next, we have special interest groups. These are groups with common concerns and interests. It includes our neighborhood associations. They have common geographic interests. Our retirement communities, so those are age-related common interests, and then our social service providers. We're also going to reach out to nonprofit organizations that are likely interested in this effort, and this includes environmental, educational, cultural, historical, and philanthropic organizations. Next, we're also going to reach out to business groups. Businesses are affected by the quality and breadth of our park and recreation system, so we'd like to engage them as well. This one we have more specifically who we plan to engage, which are the Santa Barbara Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Santa Barbara Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Visit Santa Barbara, and Downtown Santa Barbara. Next are our government agencies. We'll be reaching out to other affected city departments, school districts, and elected and appointed officials such as yourselves. We'll work closely with stakeholder groups to understand the needs and address concerns as we develop the master plan. Next, I'll go through some of the master plan components. These are the primary components of the plan. So the first one is an inventory and assessment, which is a comprehensive summary of the system, the programs it supports, and existing conditions, including the levels of service and maintenance needs. The next component is the community profile, which includes an evaluation of the climate, population characteristics, and land use trends to inform existing and future needs. And then we'll do a needs assessment. This component evaluates needs from the park and recreation system based on existing use of the system, demographic shifts, and recreation trends. This part of the assessment includes identification of underserved areas, anticipated future demand, and gaps in service. Next, we'll look into funding strategies. This component includes identification and evaluation of existing and potential future funding sources. This component will also include an economic analysis that evaluates the impact of our parks and recreation system to our economy. Lastly, and importantly, the plan will include goals and recommendations. This includes clearly articulated goals and objectives for the park and recreation system as a whole, and specific recommendations such as facility upgrades, development of new parks, and land acquisition strategies. The key master plan components shown here are what inform the work plan. The work plan set up here by phase. Across the top, you'll see the various phases. These are the ones that you will also see in the timeline. The timeline was attached in the staff report, so if you want to look at that, it is in the next slide, but you can also follow along the timeline there. So these are the phases. Underneath are some of the key tasks that we pulled out from each of those phases to present here. Where we are right now is project initiation. The project initiation phase also includes the work plan. We've actually completed most of the project initiation tasks. And we're moving into the inventory of existing resources and programs, including, we just updated the GIS map of the park system. And from there, we'll walk through the rest of the tasks that you see underneath that. This phase entails a comprehensive analysis of the city system, including existing conditions, ADA compliant, and visitation to our parks. The next phase will be evaluation of existing setting, which involves factors outside of the Parks and Recreation Department. So the existing setting is kind of our system, what's happening there, and then the evaluation of existing setting is what's happening outside of there. What are the community demographics, and what are the dynamics there? What are the overlapping plans and policies from other city departments? Next summer is when we plan to begin the community engagement portion. This phase will include surveys, interviews, meetings, and workshops, as well as a recreation trends analysis. Once we've completed all those phases, that's when we'll move into the recommendations and actions. And I walked through what all that entails in the previous slide. Lastly, and not shown on this slide because it doesn't have a bunch of tasks under it, is drafting the master plan itself. So that is shown in the timeline as when we spread it out across this period. So the total duration we have is 2 years. Here we are after the project initiation and starting into the inventory of existing resource and programs. And you can see these rectangular boxes show when we propose checking in with the commission, including this meeting today, to review the work plan. We're also proposing that we come to have you review the public participation plan, given the importance of the public process for this specific effort. That would be a good time to review the specific stakeholders or anything else in terms of that part of the process. After that, we'll do the community engagement and needs assessment, start pulling together the recommendations and actions, and we propose coming to meet again to go over some of those ideas as we move into drafting the plan. And then, of course, a meeting after we have the draft master plan. So that's what we're looking at for a work plan. On this final slide, included the list of the 3 things that we were looking for input on. We can also walk through any questions or that you have about the master plan process and where we are today.
All right, thank you very much. I guess I'm going to suggest that rather than do questions and then feedback, it's kind of hard. Let's just say what you want to say whenever, rather than trying to sort that out.
Yeah.
So I will start with Vice Chair Clark and then over to Commissioner Nielsen.
Thank you. That was a lot more fun than reading it was. Like, thanks for that presentation. It made it make sense. I guess it's a question and also a comment. I think, I'm a really big advocate for public engagement. And I was curious as to, do you set metrics ahead of time to measure your success? Like, are you going to be trying to reach people from each district? Are you going to be trying, is there a percentage of the population? Is there like, do you have like demographic milestones you want to meet? Like you get someone from each socioeconomic background Do you set those metrics ahead of time so you know that you've done it?
Right, and this is a phase we haven't started yet. We've definitely talked about doing different approaches about how we make sure we reach everybody. And I think that is part of why we would also like to come back to commission to have the public participation plan reviewed. Make sure at that point, when we do have that a little bit more nailed down, that we can present how we are approaching that.
Great, great. And then before I let someone else go, so do you want our input on people we think, stakeholders that, I'm sure you've already thought of them all, but do you want input on stakeholders that maybe you haven't? Do you have a list of stakeholders we could look at and add to, or?
We do have a preliminary list of stakeholders. What I have in that slide that showed the stakeholders is, once I had that preliminary list, I put them into groups. And I guess today, maybe it makes the most sense to evaluate the groups and decide if there's any groups that are missing. Especially since we'll be coming back.
Not individual members of each group. Gotcha.
And Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, it certainly, if commissioners have something they'd like to share via email with staff, you're more than welcome to do that.
Great.
Doesn't have to always happen in a meeting format. And we have that and can document that and keep that information. So as you think of things or you jot them down, certainly that opportunity exists as well.
Okay. And then my last thing is, and I'm sure you've already thought of it, but it might be good to have a plan for if you're unable to reach certain demographics because they don't want to be reachable.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nielsen.
I might come back around for a second time for feedback, but I guess a general question I'm hoping you guys can elaborate on. We've been talking about the open space element, and I'm still new, so could you please just elaborate how the master plan we're talking about here today, the open space element for the city, how those overlap? Or is it coincidence that we're working those things together? Do they need to align in a certain way? And then once we just address where the Parks and Rec master plan fits in, I'm also curious what it dictates for us, its meaning. I mean, we seem to have been operating a successful Parks and Rec department for many decades now without an update to this. So why, I mean, you said, like, we think we can do better if we have this, and I'm hoping you can elaborate on how is it that we do better, and what are we going to do differently than we've been doing for the last 4 decades by going through this 2-year-long effort?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I think both of us can respond to your question. We have successfully, essentially, in the last 20 years, strategically found ways to make park improvements for a variety of different reasons, having the right resources, having the staff, having the leadership to do that. And one could argue each one of those projects, we do our best to reach into the community to make sure what we think needs to happen. Sometimes it's really obvious, like renovate the restroom or replace the playground, but bigger picture, longer range things, sometimes it's better to have a larger understanding. The community is changing. So one thing we do try to do anecdotally, and this plan will allow us to be more analytical, is the change in our population. Also able to really articulate what we already know, like where we have a deficiency in parks. The master plan process will allow us to bring that to light. Similarly, our urban forest management plan, which we developed 11 years ago, the intent behind that is to actually elevate the importance of the urban forest within the community, rather than it just being the street trees and the this and the that. This will help us do that and be able to articulate not just to the community, but to our decision makers, to how we fund things, what our objectives are, where our deficiencies are. We know our downtown is densifying. We also know we're not planning for new parkland in our downtown. Should we be? The master plan will help us answer that question. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Bradbury to talk more about the relationship between open space element and the master plan, 2 different animals.
Yeah, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The open space element is actually getting updated because that is a requirement by the state. And so that has a one-year timeline. So that'll actually be completed before the master plan. The open space element is kind of this higher level policy document, whereas the Parks and Recreation Master Plan will be more about implementing park improvements and planning for on-the-ground changes. They are, however, very tied, so we are participating in the open space element meetings to make sure that those policies are in line with what's happening with the master plan and the plans at Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. Appreciate the answers. That helped clarify things.
All right, Commissioner Ramsey, and then I'll jump in with a couple things.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bradbury. That was very comprehensive, answered a lot of questions. You guys just kind of answered this, so I'm going to try to change it just a little bit. But on the needs assessment, when we're looking at future demand versus gaps in service, how are we going to weigh those two? Are we chasing the trends, or are we more focused on, oh, there are no basketball courts in town? What kind of weight are we going to assign to each?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, in terms of future demand, we want to be thinking about where the population is growing, what park resources we have there, and how much that will impact our park system. And we will also want to look at the gaps in services in terms of what we're missing now. So it's kind of, I don't currently see it as prioritizing one over the other than it's clear that the current demands are something that we know for sure. The future demands, it will depend on how clear that development is. If we have approved developments, we know we're going to have thousands of people showing up in this particular location. I think those should get weighted pretty heavily. If it's theoretical, then that would be a different story.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. And then just kind of reiterate what Commissioner Clark said, when we're looking for our goals in the future, just making sure we have those KPIs, key performance indicators, so we can keep track and keep ourselves honest and, yeah, make ourselves look good when we hit all those numbers in the future. So, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Lesnar Buxton, did you have a question?
Yeah, I would suggest you add people with disabilities to the stakeholders. We are the largest minority group in this country, but we seem to get led out of everything, and also in this time of uncertain stuff dealing with immigration and us in your population, I would suggest that we be soliciting community feedback online or on Zoom, and also I would suggest asking people if they would, I'm not sure how capable you are for doing online programming. I know it's not in the parks, but just in the future with the athletes and the senior population and the disabled, maybe asking people if they would like online exercise classes or online talks with a botanist or something. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically about actually having a separate group for people with disabilities, and if I was to just encapsulate the last part of it, it's making it safe for everybody to participate. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when I said have a plan for people that aren't reachable, that I was referring to people affected by raids as well.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Lesnar Buxton, absolutely. You know, we use the catch-all phrase accessibility, which doesn't do the community justice, but that is certainly the intent in your you're highlighting it's the engagement, but then also the delivery of service and the integration of different segments of the community's needs in receiving and participating parks and recreation programs and services.
Well, I mean, I'm also hearing from both Nicole and Jacob two things. One is what you were just describing, and the other is actually in our current climate, how we get the feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Chair McGill and commissioners, very well said and very well pointed. I think the city's doing what it can at the moment. And we'll be looking for opportunities where we can support our community more within the bounds of the law for now, for sure. I believe, this process will also hopefully help strengthen and lengthen that our role in the community is often a safe space, but how we continue to foster that and enhance that is certainly something that will be important, and important to articulate. I think oftentimes we talk about things that we kind of know or we think we know, but when you actually spend the time having those conversations, doing an analysis, preparing, now granted it's a written report or an electronic report, but you're out there in the community talking about things, planning things, engaging people, it becomes a lot more real. When we really talk about the fact that yes, Santa Barbara has 1,800 acres of parkland, but how many people can actually access that? What can they actually do there? So some of the things we're talking about when we do our analysis is like, okay, within each section of the community and the type of community member, what do they have now and what might they need? So it's both geographic and it's also social, economic, physical, all of those aspects. So we're really providing a much more holistic approach to identifying what we can do now and do now, what we don't do now and might and should do, assuming that's what people want us to do. So those things all come together. I can say, and I'll turn it back to the commission in a second, this is a process that as both the assistant director for a number of years and then as the director, I have advocated that the city invest in this type of planning effort because of primarily the community engagement process, and then the ability to leverage that engagement to secure the funding to achieve what we want to achieve. And finally, our current city administrator, has supported that, which is why we are able to move forward in this next 2-year plan to achieve that. We have successfully done some wonderful projects. There's a lot more that we could do, and we want to make sure it's what the community wants and needs.
Thank you. I mean, I guess from a kind of a nuts and bolts, and then a couple things. I think probably important, sometimes there's not always bilingual support, and I think that's pretty critical in this planning process, is to make sure that there is language support. And I guess a question, I know the county's been doing this, I'm segueing, but the county's been in a planning process as well for open space. Is there a plan, any kind of coordination with what's going on in the county?
Chair McGill and commissioners, we actually were part of an interagency staff team when they were kicking that process off. So there is sort of a county-wide generic focus, but a lot of the sort of ultimate sort of approach and work efforts are very focused on unincorporated county areas. We still remain and will continue to remain in close communication with our colleagues. And I think the other thing about what we're doing is we won't ignore the fact that we're within a region, and it's not just the city of Santa Barbara that's providing recreation and park services. So there will be that broader look of where do we exist within that regional framework.
That is kind of where I was going with it, which is that if you're taking a holistic and systematic approach, then the system is bigger than the city of Santa Barbara. Yeah. And I guess the other thing is, I'm very curious, and Commissioner Nielsen you stole my questions, because I've been through so many planning processes, and they absolutely seem like what needs to happen, and they make so much sense. But then it's like, well, then what do you do with it at the end? And I'm not always convinced that you end up with something that you do something with at the end. But I'm particularly, but I mean, obviously you're thinking this through very clearly and systematically, but I'm very, maybe this isn't the time to answer it, but as we go down the road, thinking about the plan versus the funding. And where I'm coming from with this is that, in my observation, not just here but other places, but certainly here, where the real needs are and the more immediate needs are and what can attract funding are not always the same thing. And I'm wondering how you square that circle.
Sure. Chair McGill and Commissioners, thank you for your question.
It's not an easy one.
No, but I do want to point out in the plan, certainly a big element is considering existing funding, looking at what the funding sources are, what they've been, and what our potential future ones are. So that's definitely part of what's evaluated in there. And also, when we suggest projects, we're going to have multiple types. There will be smaller projects that are more near-term, longer-term ones where we might not have as clear a picture, but certainly we'll address what types of funding we think are available and what strategies we want for funding the different projects.
Yeah, and there may also be an element to it where it goes beyond community feedback to actually community enrollment engagement, decision maker enrollment engagement, so that when you get in a conversation of who's going to give X thousand dollars for what, there's this bigger picture that everybody's engaged in.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think certainly for those of you who've been on the commission for some time or engaged in our efforts, know that we are already very strategic in terms of we try to line the project up with where we know the funding makes sense. And the Community Development Block Grant Program, for example, is a prime example of we've been able to do so much in neighborhoods of greater need with that funding, and then the neighborhoods that don't have great need don't get projects that are funded by Community Development Block Grant funding. But we also, as commissioners may remember, often start projects not really knowing how we're going to fund them. The Plaza Del Mar Bandshell is a prime example. If we didn't have the American Recovery Act funds that council appropriated, which covered half the cost of that, but when we started the project, we didn't know. It's similarly the master plan. We don't want to let funding limit us because the landscape can always change. And that, by articulating the need and having a plan, it gives us the opportunity to advance objectives as opportunities present themselves in a way that we may not be able to today, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's always top of mind. And so often when we start a project, it's like, well, how are you going to fund it? It's like, don't know yet, but we have to be ready, shovel ready, right? That's the term we've been using forever. And to a large extent, we've been successful. We're building the Dwight Murphy Field renovation project, which 8 years ago, how are you going to fund it? It's like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out by the time we get there. And so similarly, the master plan process will enable us to, and then also highlight where perhaps there are areas of town where it's harder to attract or be eligible. People will realize that, and that means hopefully they will elevate in importance as a result.
And that would be the hope and intent, I would think, yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Nielsen.
Thank you. I think I'm going to try to fumble through some words here as I find what I'm really getting at. But again, it seems like the Parks Department has been hugely successful for many decades trying to bite off pieces of this, even if the funding to bite the whole thing isn't there all at once. And if that's true, it feels like maybe this is our opportunity. We're going to get a shot at it this time. It's going to take 2 years. And I don't know if we're anticipating that we're going to get back on the recommended every 2 years, and just once we finish this, we're starting back at the beginning, or if this is, hey, look, we really expect this to be every decade or 2 decades. And so depending on what the expectation is going forward after this round, I think to me, it matters that the department has been very successful with the more tactics, this park, that park, what are we doing this year with this budget, what's our near-term strategy, and that this effort feels like it really needs to be a forward-looking, long-term. And so when we ask our community surveys and engagement questions, I find sometimes we phrase the questions and the surveys and how we score and how we ask in a very rear-view perspective, but that doesn't seem to be the exercise we're embarking on here. I think that trying to understand any community member's long-term vision and their priorities, and not just, yay, parks are great, yes, let's do as much as we can, and we don't really get anything out of it, is important to me out of this. So I think that that's my suggestion in this, is that we just make sure when we do that community engagement, we're really trying to put it in the framework of the exercise we're doing here for the long term.
Yes. I mean, I would
Yeah.
definitely concur with that. There've been, not so much at the parks, but other surveys that I find the surveys frequently frustrating because the questions are very leading. And you're maybe phrasing it as rear view. I would say leading, so you can't really say what you think.
Yeah, if I can just jump back on there, it's just like we know that these projects take many years to come to fruition, and so we don't want to almost like set people up to say, hey, what are we going to do next month or this year, when we really want to understand the community's thoughts on their projections of those trends and how it's going to change when the shovels can actually hit the dirt. And framing it as what would you like to see 5, 10, 15 years from now until we get around to doing this again, I think needs to come through in its voice consistently as we engage the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Chair McGill and Commissioners, thank you for these thoughts. I really appreciate hearing that. I think also one of the things we could do is possibly have those together for the public participation meeting. Some of those different phrased questions and what we're looking at. Also, in terms of looking towards the future about what we want to see, I often think about it's so easy to get entrenched in what the system is now, what we have now. And in order to start thinking that way, I even know for myself, I just prep it as what do I see in other cities that I want to see? So I definitely very much have alive this idea of what do we want the future to look like? I think of it very much as the next 10 years, maybe 20 years. At the same time addressing some of the near-term needs.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Ramsey.
Super concise. You mentioned that the 1985 one, they plan to revise it every 2 years. Do we have that in our schedule, or like, are we considering every 5 years, every 10 years? Is that in our head at all?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, we don't currently have a plan for, we haven't determined exactly how long we want this plan to be, and we've definitely not thought about the next step of how frequently do we want to update it. So that's not where we've gotten so far. We've kind of just internally discussed, we're thinking maybe 10 to 20 years, but we haven't talked about how much would we benefit from updating at a certain line. I think it will depend as we move along what those recommendations really look like.
Yeah. I think 10 years would be great. I mean, pickleball wasn't a thing 10 years ago, and then if we didn't have any pickleball courts, people would move out of town. But yeah, just something to consider as we move along.
So, Chair McGill and Commissioners, they're not to put us on record as committing to this yet, but there is a way to acknowledge if and when a report out is made in progress of implementation, and then as part of that, the need for an amendment to a plan, rather than, this is going to be an extremely intense process. If you run out of things to do one day and look at other cities' Parks and Rec master plans and how they came about, it's like, oh, we had 2 meetings, oh, we had 3 meetings, oh, we had whatever. We really planned for this to be a very robust community engagement process that we won't be able to do every 2 years, for starters, but also will give us that idea of how do we measure our successes, how do we measure our progress, and how do we plan for something changing. At the same time, not being locked in. So part of what you think about when you come up with a goal or a policy, particularly when it comes to a document that's adopted by the state of California, like an open space element or a housing element, you get locked into whatever's in there. And sometimes one finds that that's not working anymore. So then you have to amend that document in order to advance a changed condition. We want to have some nimbleness, for sure. And so we certainly can think about, like, how do we report back to the community the progress of implementation and/or, you know, like, nobody talked about having fenced off-leash dog parks in 1985, for example. I mean, that's like a basic example. And we have things in our code and things in our planning documents that nobody thought about. So how do we make sure there might be something out there in 10 years that we haven't thought about today or it won't next year, allowing for that to get integrated in at least the evaluation of should it or shouldn't it be incorporated into an amendment to a plan. So that's the way it could be thought of.
Okay, yeah, great. Commissioner Olson.
Sorry, I'm just, got a lot of questions on this one. And I don't know if we're like locked into this timeline and this approach, and if it's because, you know, we've been funded for a certain scope for this project, but what is it that's going to take up the full 2 years? Like, if you were to just say, hey, we have 6 months to do this, but we want to do that 6 months once every 3 years, how would the approach or the process change? What is it that we're pitching over? Why are we doing it in the 2 years every decade or two, or what is appropriate?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Newsom, I'll answer that. We don't have the resources to do that. If we spend all our time planning, we won't get anything done. So there's part of that. And if we go back to the timeline, being very mindful and intentional of the approach is really, and I can ask Ms. Bradbury to answer this further, is making sure that when we are ready to have that community engagement, we're able to answer a lot of questions that people are going to raise that we need to be have thoroughly evaluated just for the existing conditions. And I'll turn it over. It's like we really need to have our baseline ready to go. And that takes time. And then engagement is very time consuming. And then analysis is very time consuming. The plan will be developed over this period. It won't be like, oh, you won't see anything for 2 years. And then we'll be like, here you go. So it'll be a process. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I concur with everything that she just said, and also I know I laid this out and said there's just key tasks. If you look at our detailed work plan, under each of these phases, there's actually a much larger number of tasks. So it's very data-informed plan. There's a lot of different steps in it, so that's why it will take time. Also, when we get to the community engagement piece, on top of really understanding it, is being able to communicate to the public so that they can provide meaningful input, is being able to communicate to them what the constraints are. So I think there's a lot of pieces we wanted to wrap our head around about how do we take this to the public so that we can really get meaningful impact from, or input from them moving forward.
Yeah, thanks. Just one kind of follow-up comment to what Commissioner Nielsen just brought up, and I'm really thinking about kind of feedback I get when I'm kind of going around town and people are asking me about projects and how long things take. And really what I'm thinking is for you guys to consider is how you, I'm going to fumble for my own words here, compress or really concentrate the time from community engagement to having something to go out to the community with. Because what happens is that things take so long that basically there's an inertia that develops. So if you really want to build some energy and you know, getting people behind it, dragging it out for a long time isn't going to get you there. So to the degree that you can get from, we've really, really engaged with the community and this is what we've come up with and have to present to you, to the degree you can compress that, I think would serve everybody better.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, certainly that's always our objective, but there's any number of boomerangs that occur in life, and sometimes things take longer as a result, whether justified or maybe less justified, and sometimes they're beyond our control. We wouldn't want to present a timeline that's unreasonably fast and then also disappoint people.
Fair enough.
It could be very well that by winter, spring, we've done so much work, people will see progress. It won't like just be a one and done and now we're run. It'll progress over time. Development projects clearly frustrate folks because of how long it takes to both design it, get the community input, get it through the development review process or design review process, get it through building, find the funding, da-da-da-da-da-da. We don't have this big pot of gold over here, which helps you move faster. So we're doing it within our available, our resources. And then, sometimes you turn over a stone and you realize there's 2 more stones you didn't realize that were there. So we don't want to ignore them in the name of timing, like we've got to get this done. I think that could be a challenge as well.
Sure.
But your point is well taken, of course, to the extent possible. And Bronwyn is the project manager. She's a staff of 1, working closely with me, but also relying on staff resources as we get more into a lot of the evaluation and the preparation and implementation of the community engagement. We will be bringing more resources to bear to support that. But we also need the tools to illustrate. I mean, I don't know how long, Bronwyn's been revising our citywide park map and GIS, and that in and of itself, you think, oh, that should be really easy. But it's actually, that once you really want to make sure you're absolutely accurate, sometimes it takes a little longer than you think it's going to take. But the outcome should be as good as it can possibly be versus half-baked. So that's our goal too, is let's make sure what we're producing and what we're doing is really ready and solid, not just kind of, wiggled it together and hope for the best.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. This will be a fun thing to watch. I think we're there. Did you get what you need from us? And then some?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That takes us to our last item, always a favorite, the annual election of the chair and vice chair, which is going to be new for a couple of you guys. God, I'm going back to some roots. All right. This is really it's an annual thing, and it is basically election by the commission, either by nomination, self-nomination, or nomination of somebody. I can't even remember how long I've been chair because I took over from Evelyn when she left. I'm happy to continue. So if that's what somebody wanted to do, that's fine. If somebody else, if the commission wants somebody else, that's fine too.
I have 2 things. One, I think because we have new commissioners, I think you would do great to continue on as chair and then kind of nurture whoever is vice chair.
Okay.
And I would just like to express that I am happy to not nominate myself or be nominated and give someone who really has strong feelings about it the chance to do it.
So, first of all, so there'll need to be a vote, a second and a vote if I am going to be chair, which I am happy to do, and then we would open it up for, I would say, nominations for vice chair, but if somebody wants to step up into that role, I'd say don't feel shy about self-nominating in this instance. So,
I'll second you for chair.
okay,
First and foremost. And then secondly, I would like to be vice chair. I've been practicing Rosenberg's rules. And
oh, God. Okay. Shall we just take the chair first and get that done?
Chair McGill, it's entirely up to the
Okay.
commission how you'd like to.
I like to nominate myself for vice chair.
Okay.
I've been here for 9 years.
Okay. So we have, how do we do that when we have, okay,
So Chair McGill, Commissioners, if you want to do chair first and then do roll call vote for who, if you have two volunteers for vice chair and pick one of the two.
okay. And do we have anybody else that's interested in being vice chair? Might as well. Commissioner Nielsen, you're pressing a button.
Yeah, I guess for what it's worth, my appointment ends at the end of this calendar year, and so I think it's TBD on the council and whether I'm back for next year. And so just throwing it out there that I'm not participating in this because I don't think I have a right to headed into next year.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, because of the way the appointments occurred, it is a little weird. We have one with 4-year term, one with 2-year term, and one with 1-year term if you intend to reapply. It's entirely up to the commission whether you want to serve as vice chair. If you end up not getting back on the commission, they can always appoint another chair or vice chair as a result of it.
I mean, that's basically.
That can happen mid-year if necessary.
Yeah,
There's
I
that.
mean, that's basically what happened, I think, the last time I became chair. I can't remember. But there was a chair, a sitting chair who left partway through her term. And I was vice chair, so I just came up. So, and then, so basically with the vice chair role is actually chairing the meetings in the chair's absence. That's really the only formal role. And then, that is the only formal role. Yeah. All right, so let's just do a quick vote on chair, since we have a motion and a second for that. I'm going to abstain. Can I do that? Even though I said I would do it. So this is for the chair role. Has everybody voted? Have you voted?
I did, I swear I did. Maybe I looked at yours. I don't know. I voted in my mind.
It's like, you voted. Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, this is not a job for life. I don't mind. But, all right, and so we have 2 self-nominees. And so how do you want to do this?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, in the past, when the City Council is voting on appointed officials, and it's been more than one for a commission, for example, they go commissioner by commissioner with who they want to vote for.
Okay,
So you could just do a roll, starting at one end or the other, and vote for whoever you would like to select as vice chair.
okay. Let's just start that way.
Can you clarify who's been nominated?
So we have self-nominations from Commissioners Ramsey and Lesnar Buxton. Is this a golf playoff? So, all right, and so we're going to go, I guess we'll just go left to right.
You're voting.
Voting for one of the two.
One of the two, I think you did not want to.
And the two,
The two gentlemen on your far right.
Michael and Jacob.
okay, I'll go with Michael.
I'll vote for Jacob.
I vote for Jacob.
I'm going to go down to the right. Michael, who do you vote for?
I'll vote for Jacob. Why not?
I'll vote for myself.
Well, in that case, I'll vote for Michael. Just 8. So I think we got a 3-2, right?
Yep, Jacob.
4-2, right? Yeah. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think that's it, right? Yes. We are adjourned, and we
Okay, Derek, oops.